Los Angeles, city of dreams, city of shadows, where palm trees swayed under neon lights and fortunes were made in backrooms sealed with blood oaths rather than signatures. In the heart of Koreatown, nestled between luxury boutiques and gleaming glass towers, stood Haemaji, a Korean fine dining restaurant that attracted celebrities, politicians, and those who preferred their business conducted in whispers over aged soju. The exterior promised elegance, minimalist architecture, bamboo accents, soft amber lighting that spilled onto the sidewalk like liquid gold. But Haemaji was more than a restaurant. It was a kingdom. And every kingdom needed a king. Kang Jun-seok was that king. At 30, Jun-seok carried himself with the quiet authority of a man who had seen violence, orchestrated it, and emerged from blood-soaked chaos with his hands clean and his conscience undisturbed. His hair, once jet black, now bore streaks of distinguished silver that only added to his intimidating presence. His face was carved from granite, sharp jawline, high cheekbones, eyes that revealed nothing and saw everything. He spoke rarely. When he did, people listened. When he didn't, people were terrified. He controlled half of Los Angeles's underground Korean operations, import-export businesses that moved more than just electronics, nightclubs where information was currency, and a network of loyalty bought with protection and enforced with precision. The FBI had files on him 3 inches thick. They had never made a single charge stick. Jun-seok had learned long ago that the most dangerous men were the quietest ones. The ones who didn't need to raise their voices to make bones break and empires crumble. He had been married once. Her name was Soo-jin. They had a daughter, Min-hee, who had just turned 7 when it happened. Jun-seok still remembered her laugh, the way she would run to him when he came home, tiny hands reaching up with complete trust. Then came the betrayal. His second-in-command, a man he'd called brother, had sold information to a rival organization. The attack came on a Sunday afternoon. Soo-jin and Min-hee were leaving a bakery. The car bomb was meant for Jun-seok. It killed them instead. He had hunted down every person involved. It took 6 months. When it was over, an entire faction had been erased from Los Angeles. Jun-seok never spoke their names again. He never spoke of his family again. He sealed that part of himself in ice and learned to live in the cold. That was 15 years ago. Since then, he had built his empire higher, his walls thicker, and his heart into something that no longer felt pain, because it no longer felt anything at all. Until the night, everything changed. Amara Johnson had learned to make herself invisible. At 28, she had perfected the art of blending into backgrounds, of keeping her eyes down and her voice soft, of moving through the world like a ghost who left no footprints. It was a survival skill she'd acquired through necessity. She was beautiful, high cheekbones, rich brown skin that glowed under any light, natural hair she kept pulled back in a simple bun, and eyes that held depths of strength she herself didn't fully recognize. But she dressed to disappear. Simple black pants, plain shirts, minimal jewelry. Nothing that drew attention. Nothing that made her memorable. Amara had been working at Haemaji for 3 months. It was her 4th job in 2 years, her 3rd city in 18 months. She'd learned to take positions where background checks were flexible and questions weren't asked too deeply. Cash jobs, under-the-table arrangements, places where you could reinvent yourself every few months. She worked as a waitress and occasionally helped with cleaning. The pay was decent, the tips were good, and most importantly, the staff kept to themselves. The head manager, Mr. Choi, was stern but fair. He didn't pry into her past. The other Korean servers were polite but distant. perfect. She had noticed the owner, of course. Kang Jun-seok. It was impossible not to notice him. He came through the restaurant several times a week, always impeccably dressed in dark suits that probably cost more than she made in 3 months. He never smiled, never made small talk. He would walk through, exchange brief words in Korean with Mr. Choi or the head chef, and disappear into the private dining rooms on the upper floor. The staff treated him with a respect that bordered on fear. Conversations stopped when he entered a room. Eyes dropped. Everyone became suddenly very focused on their work. Amara didn't know he was a mafia boss. She assumed he was just a very wealthy, very serious businessman. The kind of man who existed in a completely different stratosphere from people like her. She was content with that distance. She needed that distance, because Amara was running from a nightmare that had once worn the face of love. His name was Marcus Reed. She had met him 4 years ago when she was young and stupid enough to believe that jealousy meant passion and control meant caring. By the time she understood the difference, she had already been trapped. The first time he hit her, he cried afterward, apologized, swore it would never happen again. She believed him. The second time, he blamed her. Said she had provoked him, that if she just listened better, didn't question him, didn't make him angry, everything would be fine. She tried to be smaller, quieter, more perfect. The third time, she stopped counting. It took her 2 years to gather the courage to leave. She'd planned it carefully, saved money in secret, created a new email account, researched domestic violence shelters. One night, when Marcus passed out drunk, she had grabbed a single backpack and walked out the door of their Detroit apartment. She changed her name from Amara Williams to Amara Johnson. Cut off contact with everyone who knew them both. Moved from Detroit to Chicago, then Chicago to Phoenix, now Phoenix to Los Angeles. She worked jobs that didn't require official documentation, lived in cheap month-to-month rentals, and never, ever let anyone get close enough to ask questions. For 18 months, she had been free. But freedom is a fragile thing when someone refuses to let you go. It was a Friday night. The restaurant was packed. Well-dressed couples celebrating anniversaries, business groups entertaining clients, Korean families gathering for special occasions. The atmosphere hummed with conversation, the clink of dishes, the sizzle of premium beef on table grills. Amara was working the main dining floor, moving efficiently between tables, refilling water glasses, delivering plates of beautifully arranged banchan. She had learned enough Korean to understand basic menu items, though she still spoke primarily in English. She was heading toward table 7 with a tray of drinks when she felt it, that prickle of awareness that comes from being watched. Not the casual glance of a customer trying to get a server's attention. Something else. Something that made her skin crawl with recognition. She turned her head slightly, and her entire body went cold. Marcus was sitting at the bar. He had changed. New haircut, more muscular, wearing a leather jacket that looked expensive. But it was him. Those same cold eyes that used to track her every movement. That same jaw that clenched before violence erupted. That same predatory smile that meant someone was about to get hurt. Their eyes met across the crowded restaurant. His smile widened. Amara's hands began to shake. The glasses on her tray rattled. She set the tray down carefully on the nearest station, her mind racing. How did he find her? Had he been following her? How long had he known she was here? She needed to leave, immediately. Grab her purse from the back, walk out the kitchen exit. Don't go home tonight. Maybe not ever. Amara. His voice cut through the restaurant noise like a blade. Several nearby customers looked up, Marcus was standing now, walking toward her with that casual arrogance that said he owned every space he entered. "Amara, baby, why you running away? I've been looking everywhere for you." He was talking loudly, intentionally, drawing attention, making a scene. It was a tactic she remembered, publicly back her into a corner so she couldn't escape without making things worse. "Please leave," Amara said quietly, her voice steadier than she felt. "I don't want any trouble." "Trouble?" Marcus laughed, spreading his arms in mock innocence. "I'm just here to talk to my girl. That's not trouble, is it?" Mr. Choi appeared at Amara's elbow, his expression concerned. "Is there problem?" "No problem, boss man," Marcus said, his tone dripping with false courtesy. "Just having a conversation with my girlfriend here. She's been avoiding my calls. You understand? Relationship issues." "I'm not your girlfriend," Amara said, louder now. Her heart was pounding, but anger was beginning to cut through the fear. "We broke up. You need to leave." "Broke up?" Marcus's expression darkened. He took another step closer. "Nah, baby. You don't get to just decide that. You don't get to run across the whole damn country. Change your name. Hide like I'm not gonna find you. You belong to me." "Sir, please, you must leave now," Mr. Choi said, his voice firmer. "You are disturbing customers." Marcus ignored him, his attention fixed entirely on Amara. "You think you can just disappear? Work in this fancy Korean restaurant, serving these rich assholes, and I'm just supposed to forget about you?" He was close enough now that Amara could smell the alcohol on his breath. Close enough that she instinctively took a step back, her body remembering what her mind wanted to forget. "You think these people give a shit about you?" Marcus continued, his voice rising. "You're just the help. Just another—" "That's enough." The voice came from behind Amara. Deep, quiet, and absolutely lethal. Everyone in the immediate vicinity went silent. The background noise of the restaurant faded into irrelevance. Even Marcus paused, his expression flickering with uncertainty. Kang Jun-seok stepped into the space between Amara and Marcus. He didn't rush, didn't push. He simply moved with the kind of calm authority that made other men instinctively step back. Jun-seok was an inch shorter than Marcus, but somehow seemed to tower over him. His expression was completely neutral. His eyes were arctic. He spoke first in Korean to Mr. Choi, then turned to Marcus. When he spoke English, his accent was thick, but his words were crystal clear. "You are disturbing my establishment. You will leave, now." Marcus bristled, puffing up his chest. "Who the hell are you? This is between me and my girl. Why don't you mind your—" Jun-seok placed his hand on Marcus's shoulder. It looked almost friendly, just a simple hand on the shoulder. But whatever Marcus felt in that grip made his entire body go rigid. The color drained from his face. Jun-seok leaned in close, speaking directly into Marcus's ear in a voice so low that only Marcus could hear. Whatever he said lasted only 5 seconds. When Jun-seok stepped back, Marcus looked like he might vomit. His bravado had evaporated. He stumbled backward, knocking into a chair. Yeah, I'm leaving," Marcus muttered, his voice shaking. "This is bullshit." Well, 2 men in dark suits, Amara hadn't even seen them approach, materialized on either side of Marcus. They weren't touching him, but their presence made it clear he had no choice. Marcus was escorted quickly toward the exit, his protests dying in his throat. The restaurant slowly returned to life. Conversations resumed. Waiters moved again. It was as if nothing had happened. Amara stood frozen, her hands still trembling. Jun-seok turned to her. Up close, his face was even more intimidating. All hard angles and controlled power. But when he spoke, his voice was gentler than she'd ever heard it. "Are you injured?" "No, I'm fine. Thank you. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean for—" "You have nothing to apologize for." He glanced at Mr. Choi. "She is finished for tonight. Make sure she gets home safely." He started to turn away. Amara found herself speaking before she could think better of it. "Will he come back?" Jun-seok paused. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then he turned back to her, and something in his expression shifted. Just slightly. Just enough for her to see that beneath the ice, something else lived. "No," he said quietly. "He will not come back. From now on." He hesitated, as if weighing his words carefully. "From now on, I will protect you." It wasn't a question. It wasn't an offer. It was a statement of fact. A promise delivered in a voice that suggested promises from Kang Jun-seok were kept, no matter the cost. Amara stared at him, unable to form words. Before she could respond, he nodded once and walked away, disappearing into the back corridor that led to his private office. She stood there in the middle of the dining room, her entire world tilted on its axis, with 4 words echoing in her mind. "I will protect you." The next morning, Amara found an envelope slipped under her apartment door. Her apartment was a studio in a rundown building in Westlake. Thin walls, flickering hallway lights, the constant smell of cooking oil and cigarette smoke. It was cheap and anonymous, which made it perfect. She'd been careful about her address. Only Mr. Choi had it on file, and even then she'd been vague about the exact unit number. The envelope was thick, cream-colored, expensive. Her name was written on the front in precise handwriting, Miss Johnson. Her hands shook as she opened it. Inside was a note and a business card. The note was brief, written in the same precise hand. "Your safety is now my responsibility. The man who threatened you has been dealt with. He will not return. If you feel unsafe at any time, call the number on this card. Day or night, someone will answer. KJS*. The business card was simple. A phone number, nothing else. No name, no company. Just a direct line to... what? Private security? The Mafia? Amara sat on her creaky bed, staring at the card. Part of her wanted to throw it away, pretend last night never happened, go back to being invisible. But a larger part of her, the part that had spent 2 years looking over her shoulder, flinching at sudden noises, planning escape routes from every room she entered, felt something she hadn't felt in a very long time. Relief. She went to work that day expecting everything to be different, expecting questions, gossip, judgment. Instead, the staff treated her with cautious respect. Mr. Choi informed her that she was being moved to a new position. She would now work exclusively in the private VIP dining rooms on the upper floor. Better tips, fewer tables, more privacy. It was clearly Jun-seok's doing. She only saw him once that day, passing in the hallway outside the VIP rooms. Their eyes met for half a second. He nodded. She nodded back. No words were exchanged, but she felt the weight of his attention like a physical presence. That night, when she returned to her apartment building, she noticed the man sitting in a car across the street. Dark suit, sunglasses despite the evening hour, newspaper in his lap that he clearly wasn't reading. Security. A guard. One of Jun-seok's people. She should have been frightened. Should have felt trapped. Instead, she climbed the stairs to her apartment and slept through the entire night for the first time in 2 years. 3 weeks passed in this new strange normal. Amara worked in the VIP rooms, serving wealthy clients who barely looked at her and tipped extravagantly. She learned the rhythms of this hidden world, the private meetings that lasted hours, the conversations conducted in rapid Korean that she couldn't follow, the subtle tensions that sometimes crackled through the rooms like electricity before storms. Jun Seok was often present. He hosted meetings in VIP Room 3, the largest and most private. Amara served his tables with the same quiet efficiency she brought to all her work. He never singled her out, never showed any special attention, but she began to notice things. The way his eyes would flick toward her when she entered the room, just to confirm her presence. The way he positioned himself between her and any client who seemed too interested or too aggressive. The subtle nod he would give her at the end of each night, a silent acknowledgement that she was safe, that everything was under control. They barely spoke, but a conversation was happening nonetheless. She learned things about him through observation and overheard fragments. That he'd been born in Busan, South Korea, but had come to Los Angeles as a teenager. That he'd built his empire from nothing, starting as an enforcer for an older boss before orchestrating a careful, bloodless coup. That he was feared, but also deeply respected, the kind of leader who rewarded loyalty and destroyed betrayal with equal precision. She learned that he drank only green tea, never alcohol. That he had a scar on his left hand that he sometimes touched absently. That despite his fearsome reputation, he tipped restaurant staff generously and had never, in anyone's memory, raised his voice. And late at night, when the restaurant closed and most staff had left, she sometimes saw him standing alone in the main dining room, staring at nothing, his expression unguarded enough to reveal the exhaustion underneath. One night, about a month after the incident with Marcus, Amara was finishing her closing duties when she found Jun Seok sitting alone in VIP Room 3. The table was clear, the room dark except for a single low light. He sat with perfect posture, hands folded, staring at the wall. She should have left quietly. Instead, she knocked softly on the doorframe. He turned his head. "Yes?" I wanted to thank you, properly. I never really did. It was nothing. It wasn't nothing. Not to me." Silence stretched between them. Then, unexpectedly, he gestured to the chair across from him. "Sit, if you wish." Amara hesitated, then entered the room and sat. Up close, she could see the lines around his eyes, the silver threading through his temples, the weariness that lived in a man who carried too many secrets. "Why?" she asked quietly. "Why did you help me? You don't even know me." For a long time, he didn't answer. When he finally spoke, his voice was distant, as if remembering something from very far away. "I had a daughter once. She would have been your age now, had." Past tense, the weight of that single word filled the room. "I'm sorry," Amara whispered. "It was a long time ago." He paused. "When I saw that man treating you with such disrespect, putting his hands near you, threatening you, something inside me remembered what it means to protect, what it means to stand between danger and those who deserve safety." "You barely know me," Amara repeated. "I know enough. I know you work hard. I know you are kind to the other staff. I know you carry fear in your shoulders like stones you cannot put down." His eyes met hers, and for the first time, she saw something other than ice in them. "And I know that no one deserves to live in fear." Amara felt tears burning behind her eyes. "I've been running for so long, I don't even know how to stop." then don't stop, but run towards something instead of away from everything. The words settled into her chest like truth. They talked for an hour that night. It was the most either of them had spoken to another person in years. Junseok told her about growing up in Korea, about immigrating with nothing, about building a life in the shadows. She told him about Detroit, about Marcus, about the exhausting work of constantly reinventing yourself. Neither of them spoke about the obvious, the attraction that was growing between them like a forbidden garden. But it was there, in the space between words, in the way their eyes held contact a moment too long, in the careful way they kept physical distance. When Amara finally left that night, Junseok walked her to her car, a beat-up Honda that barely ran. He opened her door for her, a gesture so unexpectedly courteous that it made her smile. "Thank you," she said, "for tonight, for listening." "Thank you," he replied, "for reminding me why I built this kingdom. To protect people who need protecting." As she drove away, she watched him in her rearview mirror, standing alone under the restaurant lights, looking more lonely than any man she'd ever seen. For 3 months, they existed in this careful orbit around each other, professional, respectful, but increasingly drawn together by mutual recognition. Two people who had survived their own separate wars and were trying to find their way back to something like peace. Junseok found excuses to be in the VIP rooms when Amara was working. She found reasons to stay late when he was still at the restaurant. Their conversations grew longer, more personal. He told her about his wife and daughter. She told him about her family in Detroit, whom she hadn't spoken to in 3 years because she was too ashamed to explain where she'd been. "You should call them," Junseok said one night. "Family is everything, even when it hurts." "Like you call your family in Korea?" she challenged gently. He smiled, actually smiled, which transformed his entire face. "Touché. But nothing good lasts when you've built your life on running and his on controlled violence." The call came on a Tuesday evening. Junseok was in his office when one of his men, Yoon, entered with an expression that meant trouble. "We have a situation. The man from 3 months ago, Marcus Reed, he's been asking questions in Koreatown, made contact with Han's crew." Han was a rival organization, smaller but ambitious, always looking for leverage against Junseok's operations. "What kind of questions?" Junseok's voice went cold. "About you. About your businesses. About the woman you protected. He's offering information. Says he knows your weakness now." Junseok stood slowly. "Find him. Quietly. I want to know everything he knows and everyone he's spoken to." But even as he gave the orders, ice was forming in his chest. This was the danger of caring. This was why he'd lived alone for 15 years. Because everyone you protected became a weapon someone else could use against you. Amara knew something was wrong the moment she arrived at work the next day. The usual security guard at the door had been replaced by 3 men. Mr. Choi looked stressed, and Junseok was nowhere to be seen. She was setting up VEP Room 2 when Yoon appeared. "Miss Johnson, please come with me." "What's happening?" "Mr. Kong wants to see you, in his office. Now." Junseok's private office was on the 3rd floor, accessed through a door that required a key card and an elevator that most staff didn't even know existed. Amara had never been there. The office was surprisingly simple. Dark wood, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Koreatown, minimal furniture. But the walls held what looked like very expensive Korean art, and there was a photograph on the desk that she could just make out. A woman and a little girl, smiling. Junseok was standing at the window, hands clasped behind his back. He didn't turn when she entered. "Your ex-boyfriend has made contact with people who want to hurt me," he said without preamble. "He is offering them information about you, about my interest in your well-being. He is trying to use you as leverage." Amara's stomach dropped. "Oh God, I'm so sorry. I should leave. I should go right now. I'll disappear again. He won't be able to." "No." He turned to face her. His expression was harder than she'd ever seen it, but his eyes were burning with something that made her breath catch. "You will not run. Not anymore. Not from him, and not from this." "But I'm putting you in danger. I have been in danger every day of my adult life. That is the life I chose." He crossed the room until he was standing directly in front of her. "But you did not choose this. You did not choose to be hunted. You did not choose to have your safety used as a weapon. And I will not allow it to continue." "What are you going to do?" "What I do best. Remove threats." He paused, and something in his expression softened. "But I need you to trust me." "Can you do that?" Amara looked into his eyes and saw the truth that they'd both been dancing around for months. This wasn't just protection anymore. This wasn't just a mafia boss helping an employee. This was something else. Something deeper and more dangerous and absolutely terrifying. "Yes," she whispered. "I trust you." His hand came up slowly, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, he cupped her face with a gentleness that seemed impossible from a man whose hands had orchestrated so much violence. "Then let me do what I promised that first night. Let me protect you. Not just from him. From everything." "Why?" Her voice cracked. "Why do you care so much?" "Because when I look at you, I remember what it feels like to want to protect something precious. Because you made me feel human again when I thought that part of me died 15 years ago." He leaned closer, his forehead almost touching hers. "Because somewhere between that first night and now, you became mine to protect, and I do not fail at protecting what's mine." The kiss was inevitable. It was soft and fierce all at once, tasting of desperation and hope and all the words they'd been too afraid to say. When they broke apart, Amara was crying and Junseok's hands were shaking. "I'm scared," she admitted. "So am I," he replied. "But I will handle this. I promise you." Marcus had made a critical error. He thought Kang Junseok was like other men, that showing weakness, caring about someone, made you vulnerable. He didn't understand that threatening what Junseok protected didn't make him weak. It made him absolutely lethal. Within 48 hours, Junseok's network had located Marcus. He was staying in a motel in North Hollywood, meeting with Han's lieutenant every few days, sharing information about Hamaji's operations, about Junseok's schedule, about the black woman the boss is obsessed with. Han was planning something. A coordinated attack meant to look like a robbery gone wrong. Take out Junseok and grab Amara in the chaos. Use her as leverage to force concessions or just eliminate her to hurt him. Either way, it was sloppy, ambitious, and very, very stupid. Junseok called a meeting with his core team. 6 men who had been with him for over a decade. Men who understood that their survival depended on his, and his depended on maintaining absolute control. "We end this quietly," Jun-seok said. "No public violence, no police attention. Han gets a message, and Marcus disappears. Permanently." "What about the woman?" Yoon asked carefully. "If we're eliminating him, she becomes even more exposed. His family might—" "I'm moving her. Tomorrow. Into my home." Silence. Everyone in the room understood the significance of that statement. Jun-seok's home was sacred ground. He'd never brought anyone there. Not in 15 years. "Boss," one of his men ventured, "is that wise? If you're that close, it's not your place to question." Jun-seok's voice was ice. "It's your place to make it secure. Triple the perimeter security. Background checks on every service person who comes within 2 blocks. I want her protected as if she were my own blood. Because she is." The weight of those words settled over the room. "Understood, boss." That night, Jun-seok went to Amara's apartment himself. She opened the door to find him standing there in the dim hallway, looking both powerful and strangely vulnerable. "Pack what you need," he said. "You're moving tonight." "Moving where?" "Somewhere safe. Somewhere I can protect you properly." "Your home," she said quietly. It wasn't a question. Yes. She should have been scared, should have questioned what this meant, what she was agreeing to. Instead, she stepped back and let him in. Her apartment looked even smaller with him in it. He glanced around at the peeling paint, the ancient appliances, the single window with bars. His expression darkened. "You've been living here?" "It was cheap, anonymous." "You deserve better than this." "I deserve to be safe. Everything else is extra." He looked at her then, really looked at her, and she saw the decision crystallize in his eyes. Whatever came next, he was all in. She packed quickly. She'd had plenty of practice. 1 suitcase, 1 backpack. All her worldly possessions fit in the trunk of his Mercedes. His house was in the hills, behind gates and walls and security systems that would rival a bank. Modern architecture, all glass and steel and dramatic angles, perched on the hillside with views of the entire city spread below like a glittering carpet. Inside was surprisingly warm. Dark wood floors, comfortable furniture, art that was clearly chosen with care rather than just to show wealth. And everywhere, subtle signs of a man who lived alone but wished he didn't. Too many coffee cups in the kitchen, books stacked beside chairs in multiple rooms, a collection of Korean films on the shelf that suggested lonely nights spent remembering home. "Your room is upstairs," he said, leading her through the house. "Private bathroom, balcony with views. Everything you need." The room was beautiful. King-sized bed, soft lighting, French doors opening onto a terrace that overlooked the city. It should have felt like luxury. Instead, it felt like a gilded cage. "Jun-seok," she said carefully, "what happens now?" He set down her suitcase and turned to her. "Now I eliminate the threat. Marcus, Han, anyone who thinks you're a weakness they can exploit. It will take a few days. During that time, you stay here. You're safe here. And after? After?" He stepped closer. "After, you decide. If you want to stay, if you want to go, if you want—" He paused, and for the first time, she saw uncertainty in his face. "If you want this. Us. Whatever this is becoming." Amara reached up and touched his face. This man who commanded respect through fear, who built empires in shadows, who was capable of terrible things in the name of protection. He was looking at her like she held his entire world in her hands. "I'm terrified," she admitted. "So am I. But I'm more terrified of running again, of being alone again, of never finding out what this could be." He kissed her then, fierce and claiming, and she kissed him back with equal intensity. Years of loneliness and pain and survival poured into that kiss. When they broke apart, he pressed his forehead to hers. "I already lost one family," he whispered. "I won't lose you, whatever it takes." "Then don't let me go." "Never." The next 72 hours unfolded like a chess game played with human lives. Jun-seok moved with the precision of a master strategist. Marcus was located, isolated, and extracted. It happened in a parking garage in North Hollywood. One moment, Marcus was walking to his car. The next, he was in a van, zip-tied and blindfolded, being driven to a warehouse Jun-seok owned near the port of Los Angeles. When the blindfold came off, Marcus found himself facing the man who had terrified him in the restaurant months ago. Kang Jun-seok sat in a metal chair, perfectly calm, while two of his men stood behind him like silent shadows. "You made a mistake," Jun-seok said quietly. "You threatened someone under my protection." Marcus tried to bluster. "I don't know what you're talking about, man. This is kidnapping. This is the part where you listen." Jun-seok's voice never rose, but the temperature in the room seemed to drop. "You contacted Han's organization. You offered them information about my operations and about Amara Johnson. You thought this would protect you, yes? That having allies would keep you safe." Marcus's face went pale. "But you do not understand how this world works. Han cannot protect you from me. No one can. I control this city's underworld because I understand one fundamental truth. There is no mercy for people who threaten what I protect. None. Look, man, I just wanted my girl back. I didn't mean to. She is not your girl. She was never yours. Ownership implies something you earned, something you cherished. You tortured her. You made her flee her own life, and then, when she found safety, you tried to destroy it." Jun-seok stood and walked closer. Marcus tried to shrink back, but was held in place by the zip ties. "I'm going to give you a choice," Jun-seok said. "The only choice you'll get. Option 1, you disappear. Tonight, I have people who will drive you to the Canadian border. You cross. You never come back to the United States. You never try to contact Amara again. You erase her from your memory as if she never existed. You do this, you live." And option 2? Jun-seok's smile was colder than anything Marcus had ever seen. "Option 2, you do not live, and it will not be quick." There was no question which option Marcus chose. 3 hours later, he was in a van heading north with enough cash to start over and enough fear to ensure he never looked back. Han's organization was handled differently. Jun-seok called a meeting of the council, the informal group of Korean and allied Asian crime organizations that governed Los Angeles' underworld. In a private room in Haimaji with 8 other bosses present, Jun-seok laid out the evidence of Han's attempted move. "He tried to use personal matters to destabilize my operations," Jun-seok explained, his voice calm. "This breaks the agreement we all made. Personal affairs remain personal. Business remains business. Han crossed that line." The evidence was damning. Recordings of meetings between Han's lieutenant and Marcus, text messages, financial transfers. One of the other bosses, an older Vietnamese man named Tran, shook his head. Sloppy, ambitious, without wisdom. The vote was unanimous. Han's territory was absorbed by the other organizations. His protection was revoked. Within a week, Han left Los Angeles entirely, his power broken, his reputation destroyed. Jun-seok returned home that night exhausted, but satisfied. The threat was eliminated. Amara was safe. He found her in his kitchen, wearing one of his shirts and cooking something that smelled amazing. She looked up when he entered, and the smile she gave him was like sunrise after a long, dark night. "You're home," she said. Home. The words settled into his chest, unfamiliar and precious. "It's done," he told her. "Marcus is gone. He won't be back. Han is finished. You're safe now." She set down the spoon and crossed to him, wrapping her arms around his waist. He held her tightly, breathing in the scent of her hair, feeling the solid warmth of her body against his. "I was scared," she admitted. "Not for me. For you. I was scared you'd get hurt because of me." "I've survived far worse dangers than a jealous ex and an ambitious rival." She pulled back to look at him. "What happens now? Should I find my own place? Now that it's safe?" The question hung between them. Jun-seok realized that he was standing at a crossroads. He could let her go, return to his lonely existence, maintain the walls that had protected him for 15 years. Or he could take the terrifying leap into the unknown. "No," he said finally. "If you want to stay, I want you to stay. Not as someone I'm protecting, as someone I—" He paused, searching for the right words. "As someone I cannot imagine my life without." Tears filled Amara's eyes. "I don't know how to do this. How to trust this. How to believe this is real." "Neither do I. But we learned together." They kissed then, and this time it was different. Not desperate, not claiming, just tender and real and full of possibility. That night, Amara didn't sleep in the guest room. She slept beside Jun-seok in his bed, their bodies curved together, his arm protective around her waist, her hand resting over his heart. For the first time in 15 years, Kang Jun-seok did not have nightmares. For the first time in 4 years, Amara Johnson slept without fear. The restaurant was hosting a private event. Hamaji's dining room had been transformed with flowers and soft lighting for a celebration. The birthday of Mr. Choi's daughter, who was graduating from UCLA. Amara moved through the room with natural grace, no longer a waitress, but something else entirely. The staff treated her with respect that bordered on reverence. Everyone knew she was Kang Jun-seok's woman, and that made her untouchable. She had finally called her mother in Detroit. The conversation had been hard. Explanations, tears, apologies. But slowly, they were rebuilding. Her mother was planning to visit next month. Jun-seok watched her from across the room. He was engaged in conversation with Tran and 2 other council members, discussing legitimate business ventures, but his attention kept drifting to Amara. The way she laughed with the kitchen staff, the way she effortlessly moved between English and the Korean phrases she'd been learning, the way she fit into his world without losing herself. She caught him watching and smiled. That smile that still made his heart do strange things. Later, after the party ended and the restaurant emptied, They stood together on the balcony of his office, looking out over Koreatown. The city glittered below them, beautiful and dangerous and full of life. "What are you thinking?" Amara asked, leaning against his side. "That I spent 15 years believing I was better off alone. That I had nothing left to protect, nothing left to lose. And now?" He turned to her, cupping her face in his hands. "Now I have everything, and I'm terrified and grateful and more alive than I've been since I was a young man who still believed in happiness." "Do you believe in happiness again?" "I believe in you. I believe in this. Whatever that makes me believe in." She kissed him softly. "I love you, Jun-suk. I know it's probably too soon to say it, and I know your world is complicated, but He silenced her with another kiss. When he pulled back, his eyes were shining. "I loved you the moment you sat in that VIP room and asked me why I helped you. I loved you when you were brave enough to stay instead of run. I loved you when you looked at me and saw a man instead of a monster." He rested his forehead against hers. "And I will love you until my last breath. This, I promise. Even though you are not just anything. You are the woman who saved me from a lifetime of darkness. You are my future, my family, my home." Amara's tears fell freely now, but they were good tears, healing tears. "Then I promise something too. I promise to stop running, to build a life instead of just surviving, to be brave enough to stay, even when it's scary. We'll be brave together." As the city sparkled below them and the night stretched out full of possibilities, Kang Jun-seok held Amara Johnson close and thought about second chances, about how sometimes, in the darkest places, you find the brightest light, about how the most powerful form of protection is simply refusing to let someone face the world alone. He had promised to protect her that first night, a promise whispered in the chaos of a restaurant confrontation. He had kept that promise, but what he'd discovered was that protection worked both ways. She had protected him too, from loneliness, from believing he was irredeemable, from a life lived in perpetual winter. She had protected his heart, and in doing so, she had given him back his humanity. "I'll protect you," he murmured against her hair, repeating the words that had started everything. She pulled back to look at him, smiling through her tears. "And I'll protect you, always." It was a promise they both intended to keep.